Okay, hello everybody, and thank you, Kari, for joining us for the beginning of the lecture today. And the topic today is, surprise, surprise, streaming. But today we're going to look at it from a little bit different perspective, looking at it from art manager's eyes and consumer eyes, like what kind of experiences we create when we have events online and streamed. I will start with my slides.
Hi.
Hello, welcome. So, streaming is something that might not look like this when we actually are on it, like we are now here in the online session, but I will talk and then I will pause and let you have questions, and then we will have some group works and so forth. So let's start. I'll maybe put this down. Sorry, just a second. Okay. So today we're going to first look into the streaming performances, what kind of experiences we are creating, and have a short introduction of streaming from this perspective. Then we have 3 cases that you can work on. I will divide you into breakout rooms that you can work on the cases, and then we will discuss what you learned or what you reflected on the cases. We will continue by an interview. That's an online interview. Unfortunately, Anni couldn't join in person, but we pre-recorded an interview on her work, on her previous masterwork, based on her previous masterwork on online events. And then we'll discuss a little bit about what Anni talked to us and then conclude the seminar. And at every time, I will not see you since I'm lecturing and I have the full screen on, but I will always make little pauses that we can have the discussion, and feel free to always add also to the chat box if you have any kind of questions or comments or concerns. So streaming, from this perspective, streaming is nothing new. Live performances have been recorded, streamed, ever since the TV show started. And in fact, at the very early days, it was mainly directly streamed content that was provided to the television programs. And streaming can be referred to all kinds of ways of delivery method or content. And it's not actually about the content itself, but it's more the technology, the way of like providing the content in this kind of like an online form. But it, of course, nowadays mainly is connected to the online form on internet, but let's start with the television shows as well. So there is a lot of experience and a lot of understanding how it can be done, especially in the performing arts field. However, these new technologies have kind of expanded the needs for understanding and creating the experiences with the streamed with the content and then the streamed itself, and understand how the content might actually change when it is streamed. So like I was saying, it did start from the early days of the television. And there are several ways of kind of nowadays working with these television shows and kind of live stream from the event, from the performance. So one way is that you kind of stream it straight away live at the same time as it's happening. Then nowadays many organizations, for example, the Finnish Radio Symphony Orchestra, Wednesday concerts, us directly stream, but they take half an hour in between in order to make some last minute editing to ensure that the content is of high quality when it actually reaches the television. There can be this kind of like on-spot integrated editing, but of course then you need the technological skills. And it can be also a combination of the live direct streaming and then recorded ones. And maybe a good example of this could be the Vienna Philharmonic New Year's concerts, where the actual concert is live streamed and we can live it with the live audience, but the kind of the intermission time is filled with previously recorded content, and sometimes also the music comes live, whereas there are added other content for the television viewers, such as ballet dancing in most cases. And in some cases, there can be a combination of several live content, that you are combining content from different sources and kind of changing the location at different time slots. Of course, once again, high risk and a lot of kind of technical insurance that this can be done so that the audience, the consumer, doesn't kind of like get disturbed with these little breaks that when you move from one spot to another. Maybe a good example could be sport contest, where you get the live stream from very different locations, but all kind of integrated into one long program. And of course, if we think about performances, very seldom you only have one view for the performance, but the different cameras and different angles of looking at the performance are changed throughout the event. And then on the other hand, you can have the same content, but then you are multi-streaming it to different platforms. So you might have screens in a park, you might have a television, you might have only the audio in a radio, and then you can have internet streaming all at the same time from the same content. And a good example of this would be, for example, the BBC Proms, and especially the final concert that is live streamed globally. It is televised in some countries. It is streamed to different parks throughout Great Britain. So it is kind of a very different context where the people are experiencing the actual concert. So either in their homes, it can be a picnic in a park, or it can be some kind of joint event in for example, a restaurant or something like that. So all these create different settings for the content and different ways that the audience is experiencing it. And the means of how you are streaming it and where you are experiencing it, of course, affect the way that you react to it and the audience's own experience. So there are some studies. I made some search, but I couldn't find too many stories about the streaming experience. That how does the content or the different ways of streaming affect how we experience it? I did find this one study, which was about the quality of the experience for streaming services. And it kind of looked into the content. And of course, the content is kind of at the core of everything. And it's kind of directing how you can experience it. And the experience is dependent on the individual. Who am I? How am I experiencing it? What is my mood and my own situation? On the context, like we discussed earlier with the BBC Proms final concerts, that if you are in a park looking at the big screen, your experience is most likely very different from the ones who are looking at it home from their computer or from television, and then to the ones who are actually live experiencing it, not through the streaming one, but actually on the spot. So the context has huge impact of how you experience the content. So they both, of course, play a role. Then we have the role of technology. I think we all have experienced the role of the technology in a negative way, that there has been a break in the streaming because of technological difficulties, or that there's not enough kind of Wi-Fi internet capacity to experience it well, or some other issues that can be intervening in the experience. So streaming is always dependent on the technology and the quality and the capacity of the people of using the technology. And then it's engagement. Do you, in your streaming, plan to have some kind of engagement? Is engagement even a part of your plans? when we think about performing arts, we mainly engage as audience, as looking, as kind of feeling, having the emotions raised by the content. But there can, of course, be other forms of engagement, creating participatory activities for the audience, or creating co-creational activities with the audience. So there can be very different means of building engagement. And of course, just by being involved in experiencing an artistic context is engagement as such and shouldn't be ignored. However, how to build engagement, of course, then differs very much when you are on an online platform and online context. So if you wish to have this kind of engagement and what kind of engagement you wish, you need to know what kind of technological tools you can use and how to relate those to the content that you want to perform. And the experiences can be multiple. There are multiple genres. We nowadays see that almost any genre of performing arts is using streaming in different ways, different formats. We have the streamed from the classical music to home concerts in all kinds of music. We have the very high technical quality settings with lots of resources. We have the self-made content streamed to global audiences on social media or YouTube, for example, where the actual quality of the technology might not be so high. But on the other hand, the feeling and the atmosphere might compensate on that. And then we have the use of the professional studios or professional equipment and professional personnel to conduct the technical quality. And we might have multiple audiences and aims. When we think about this, especially in the multi-streaming context, we need to figure out that who is our audience, how are they most likely wishing to experience us and our streamed section. And then think about the aims that the audience have. Do they want to kind of relax? Do they want to just listen or just be audience, engage in that manner? Or do they want to engage? Do they want to participate or co-create? And you have to kind of understand your audience before you start making the decisions of how to use streaming in your arts management work. I will now stop sharing for a second. If you have any questions on this short introduction or comments. How many of you have watched the Vienna Philharmonic New Year's concert? At least 2. You can also use the signs from the below if you don't want to show your face. Do we have question or is this get to the vote? Okay, yeah, this is the vote now. Okay, very many of you. How about then, how many have attended online concerts in other kind of like sectors of art, like let's say theater pieces? How many have watched streamed theater? Couple. Okay. And then how about then in popular music, like rock concerts? I guess the same. Either it's always the same who are awake, or then you're the most active ones in consuming culture. Okay, there is, let me see, 15 of you. I have made 3 cases. So I will now divide you, put into breakout rooms in random way, into 3 breakout rooms. And I have made case slides to the Google Drive, so I will share the link. I will actually put it on the chat. So you can go to the Google Drive. So the group 1 we'll discuss the case one. There are a couple of slides on each just to kind of raise your thinking and some questions on what to reflect on and discuss the case and think especially from the experience perspective and managerial perspective. What kind of experiences is this particular case creating? What could be improved? What is kind of lacking maybe? And what kind of issues would you need to know as an arts manager if you plan to do similar type of activities in your professional life? Okay, is this clear for everybody? The task, it's also, the questions are also written in the slides. Okay, and you will have 15 minutes and then I will bring you back. Okay. So enjoy and try to find your voices and maybe even your faces when in the small group. Okay, see you in 15 minutes. So everybody should join. So if you're still here, you should be going to the group. Delhi, if you're not the management person, please join. Gulnora Chuk, would you join your group? Brunda Swavant, please join your group. And Sonali Singh. Okay, you have 15 minutes. Hello, Maria. We are now going to the small group work and we will come back in 15 minutes. I will not assign you. Okay, I will pause my Did you go to your rooms? Did you try to go to your rooms, Siddiq?
Yes, ma'am. I was trying to join the room, but I could not. And I
Okay,
was
let
asking
me
them,
see.
yeah, please, if you can add me to one of the room.
Okay, I will send you to room 1.
All right,
I
thank
didn't
you.
receive, look, I didn't receive a link to go to.
I didn't actually send you, Maria,
Okay,
to any of the
no
rooms.
problem.
Do you want to join?
Okay. No, I wait now. No problem.
Okay.
I have classes in 1 hour, so I can wait until there. I can be
Okay.
here.
Happy to have you here.
Well, thank you very much.
I think we're going to break out in about 5 minutes back to the main room.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome back. Hello, Maria. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. So now I will start with the first case. So who would want to talk about the Metropolitan Opera?
I can talk.
Please start, Leah.
So Metropolitan Opera, to make it active event, the event that can engage audience in a cinema theater. One of management methods that we thought about is bringing artists before the production showcase starts. So the artists can talk about their stories, experiences, having been performed on different stages, on different theaters, and situations that they interacted with different directors, because the staging process and interpretation process from scene, from performance to performance is different. And so it's kind of engagement and also bringing awareness to audience and evoking interest among audience about the performance. One method is that. The other method is focusing on the sound system. So the recording beforehand is done properly, professionally, good sound system. So people, what they listen from live performance, the cinema theater screen doesn't interrupt their listening effect. The other method of engagement with the audience is to stream on different channels. So can be, for example, in restaurants, in cafes, people can have a dinner and meanwhile watch on screen the performance.
Like this, it's changing the setup. Okay.
Location, yes,
Yeah.
changing location.
Anybody else from the group want to add things to Leah's topic?
No, I think it's okay.
Laura? Nobody? Okay. Yes, very good. And I think the case of Metropolitan Opera, it has existed quite a long time. And it's, in a way, to my mind, it imitates this kind of like a going to somewhere. That one of the points of having it in a cinema is that it becomes an event. It's not only at your home, but it's going somewhere, making it festive. And one of my personal, well, I have actually several personal experiences, but two very different ones. So one of the very early times when this was very new, we went and it was kind of like an event, and we saw people who also were opera lovers there that we knew beforehand. And then the local cafe next door had organized this kind of intermission event so we could go for a coffee and a cake. So it kind of imitated a lot like a true visit to an opera. Whereas then in the second time, well, in another time, I went to it, and it was in a different cinema, which is in a kind of like an industrial building. There was no cafe next to it, and it was very different experience in that respect. Of course, the performance itself and watching it was emotional, but there was no coffee break, no meeting people that I would know. So it was very different type of experience. And I think originally why they started to have this in the cinema was to kind of like imitate going to a cinema, because of course we see opera in the television all the time, but they wanted to make it something different so that it would be like a social event. But I mean, it then, at least based on my personal experience, it depends a lot like how you plan it yourself. Any other comments on this? Okay, Then we move along. Then we had the second case, and unfortunately, I think that group disappeared or was totally silent. So we can talk it through. Just you'll have to listen to my voice now instead of someone else. But this is about the rock concert, and then comparing it, it's kind of like a more home concert setting. So the example is from Corona times, but one of the very global rock groups was presenting online, and then they had this kind of like a very aim of creating this intimate home concert, and also having this kind of like that it was limited amount of people, and the people were allowed to kind of chat with the performers. So they really started to feel that they are kind of with the performers, rather than trying to imitate the concert feeling. There's the stage and I'm in the audience. They made it so that there was this total interaction all the time, that you could chat with them and they would play, and it aimed really very different type of experience, rather than aiming to duplicate the concert feeling in an online context. And I think many of the loyal fans were very happy, at least the accounts that I've heard, they're very positive about it, that there was kind of feeling of belonging and creating a relationship with the group and having a dialogue. Very different from a regular global rock concert, these huge concert experiences. And then there can also be these kind of experiences, which is like my band playing at home. I might have a couple of people around, but in the end, it's really like building this kind of like a connection. But on these, it's often what we had, the three bubbles. We had also the technological quality. In these, the quality might not be a very high quality, because it may be your phone or something, but that can be also part of the charm. And you see these kind of performances not only on internet, in YouTube and so forth, but a lot in the social media. Do you have any experiences yourself on this kind of, either these two type of events? No. No rock concert goers here.
Not rock concert, but I actually told this story yesterday, but I have experience with Andrea Bocelli one concert. So
Did you chat with him?
Yeah, quite fun it was, because I wasn't able to go to Italy to listen to him, so it was like good experience.
Yeah. And I think what I'm trying to kind of demonstrate between these two examples, cases, is that you can try, like, I guess the mainstream nowadays in kind of streaming performances is about duplicating, trying to aim for the identical experience that we have in a live concert or in a live performance, and showing it, and not kind of making maybe the different steps of trying to make it different, of how to build it a different type of experience, like we had in the rock concert, that it is much more different in this, that you kind of provide the chat and you provide the possibility of a dialogue. Even, of course, also in this like Metropolitan Opera, they show extra that you have a visit to the backstage, and you might have the interviews of the artists in the intermission, but it's still different, because you're still at all the time an audience, not active participants. Whereas in this case, it's more about not only seeing, hearing, but also kind of engaging in a different way, of participatory ways. And depending on your aims, whatever your performance is that you want to stream and what you want to reach, there's no like one is better than the other, but they are just different, and it depends which one to kind of aim for. Depends on your own aims and goals, that what do you want to reach by streaming the performance. Any questions, comments? Okay. Then group 3. This was the kind of like an international event context. So who wants to talk? I saw that you were quite active online anyway. So there was Misia, Sidik.
I mean, Sia, Lupcho, Woody, and
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Yeah. We were talking just like overall things about streaming, what we learned actually in this week in this course. For example, how to do streaming interactive. For example, like asking using different platforms to ask how do you feel, or I don't know, some kind of polls, or due to like surveys, and they can be anonymous.
Yes.
Anonymous, sorry. And what kind of experience the case highlights and how they are managed and co-created with audience. Yeah, that I already answered, but the second one was like, what are the main elements from the streaming perspective and from the management perspective. So we were talking about how important it is the people who manage streaming to look over all the technical aspects, the lighting, the sound, the connection, everything basically, and the management perspective, how to link different performers, how to what are the roles and responsibilities in team, and matchmaking, overall matchmaking. So yeah, and we had different examples as well, which kind of online events we know, and also the platforms. For example, we can use Zoom or Meet for streaming platforms as well, or YouTube, or yesterday we learned about Lola as well.
As a tool. Yeah.
As a tool, yeah.
Then this one had several challenges. Did you discuss this in more detail, or this is actually based on like a true case, like all of these, of course. And I can maybe skip some of the things because I had. So here was some of the like elements that they actually had. That they had very high protocol person that needed safety requirements as one of the keynotes. And then they had this was an event that was supposed to happen on site. And then in the corona time, they changed into online. And the actual the content owners, let's call them that, were not very experienced on these. So, but they had very high profile event to do, and very high profile audiences invited. But then it was opened up in a bit more broader setting because it was online. But they had so many elements that was really complicated. They did have like even more for the on-site. I was actually like representing one of the partners, but anyway, they also had like there were some things that needed to take off. But at the beginning, it was the keynotes, the panel, the pitches. There was supposed to be an exhibition. And then, of course, meeting people, and kind of the partners would have their booths in the lobby and all kind of like normal stuff. But then online setting, then they started to kind of think, but they kept most of it. So there was the keynote. There was also like how would I say? I'm trying to kind of hide what the event was, but anyway, there were like different mini elements, mini events combined with the main event that needed to be connected. If it had been on site, they would have been just in another room and there would have been connection. But in this case, it was more complicated. And Then there was supposed to be this partner booths, I already said that, and then these kind of all kinds of side programs and the exhibition. The exhibition was cut out totally because it was too difficult to transform that to the online event. But what they did realize their own competencies, that they didn't have the competence on online events and they didn't have the technical competencies. So they subcontracted an event organization company that had the platform. So it had a ready-made platform for online events. So you had the different rooms and ways how to kind of like have these matchmaking rooms and different elements in it. And then they also subcontracted the studio with the professional producers because they didn't want to get stuck in this kind of high-profile element that then the technology doesn't work or there's not enough stream available. And the partners who were supposed to have their booth were then asked to kind of, well, they were asked to kind of create videos or some kind of like site visits. Most partners selected this kind of making a video because of likewise, they felt that having the online live streamed site visit was too difficult to organize. So it was mostly, for example, for us, it was a combination. Couple of videos and then a discussion event online, like in real life. And then for the main content, it was found especially very important that they hired an international professional moderator. The event was in English. And then they practiced that, even though it was a live performance and had it been on site, they probably wouldn't have practiced of how you talk in a panel or who comes in when. But in this context, they did. They have a practice at the studio so that everybody was familiar with the studio and there was timelines who comes in and who goes out. And they had these pre-written scripts for most parts that not necessarily of the content, but like what people will say, but how they come in and who says what and like who comes in when and all these kind of like elements. So it was much more planned in that way than it would have been on site. But it was really a good success. And for the high profile person, it was then made that person never came even not to the studio, but that share was live streamed and combined with the mainstream from the person's own premises. And then one of the sub events was likewise was organized on a different stream. And then at the end, it was combined by visiting like this, that there was like a Zoom visit to the main studio event so that the main people could talk with the minor event people. And this sounds probably very complicated because I have not the permission to tell like what the event was, but all in all, the lesson learned from this one was that if you don't have the competencies and you realize it, you know the content and you have been organizing, they had been organizing these kind of normal events several times. But having this realization that you seek help from the professionals and you see this kind of like a subcontracting and understanding on these elements was very vital for the success of this. But of course, on the other hand, you need a lot of resources to do this. Then you have to have the resources somewhere to kind of create this kind of event where you use different subcontractors and professional studio and professional filming in another location and in a tinier event and so forth. So, but all in all, it worked quite well. Any questions or comments on this?
Only comment for me, from me, it was quite I felt it was a bit harder to discuss this case because I didn't know which case it is or which specific case it is. So and when I read about this case, was like in my mind it was TED Talk. It was similar to TED Talk a bit. So yeah,
Some parts of it were, yeah.
Yeah, that I wanted to say. Just say it was like
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Just I wanted to make it like, it would have been much nicer to have it like, but I didn't have time to get all the permissions, so.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Otherwise, it is quite a common form to do online streaming events. So
Yes. And Laura?
I wanted to ask actually about this case, like if you have this kind of important and like let's say streamings with sensitive information, is there like usually like one person who is responsible of the streaming, like who is not actually participating in the streaming? Because we have like these like normal Zoom meetings at work, and we always have like one person who is like not the technical side, but just making sure everything is going smoothly. But this is like just a normal meeting. But I'm thinking like if this is like a big international event, is there like anyone who is like completely responsible of it, like maybe IT side or someone?
Yes, and
my
in
voice.
this case, the studio was completely responsible for
Okay.
the streaming work and all the connections, and they were also responsible for the connection work with the kind of satellite event and how to organize it.
Okay.
They took
Thanks.
the whole responsibility on that technical side.
Mhm.
Because of course, in this kind of case, when you don't have your own technical staff, almost like the only choice. But in even smaller events, it is kind of like, well, we will hear next Anni's interview, but she's also highlighting that if you are the organizer, you can't be also the responsible for the
Yeah.
streaming, that you need to have a second person for that
Mhm.
or a third person, but yeah, depending
Okay.
on the event.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? I'll come back then to.
maybe this one, it's good to know that you have to be aware about different platforms, because we all know that Zoom is not quite good platform for sensitive information, and I think it's like good to know that we have so many different platforms for streaming. I actually know a bit, but not that many different platforms, like so.
Mm. And of course, it's not always on, like, for example, Aalto University has an agreement with Zoom, so our security level is higher than the Zoom that we are using now, because we need to use it for also passing on sensitive issues. So there are these many, I think many of the companies actually have these kind of special agreements with the main providers like Teams, Zoom, and so forth. That is kind of, they are providing them more security, and that they're also promising that the data that is kind of like inside is not leaving Europe. Whereas if you use these American tools, they by default take the data to their own clouds, which are not in Europe. So there is that's one of the choices, that you make a different type of agreement with the platform providers to ensure more security. And here is just a summary of the main topics, that what to kind of reflect. I don't think there is like right answers to in these, because it always depends on what is the content and who are the audience and what are your aims, how you kind of then build engagement or not. Are you happy with having the people as audience, or do you wish them to co-create something? What kind of quality of the technology you are expected to have, and what kind of resources you have. Of course, there's always the other side as well, that you might wish to have the highest standard and engage a studio, but you just don't have the means for it. So you have to kind of be realistic in these. And what kind of skills and competencies you have, both technological, but also in the human resources side. And then find the balance between your aims and your resources. Okay, I think I will now move along to the interview. So Anni made a master thesis. Some of you might have read it, I don't know, about the online showcase events. It's available in the library and for you online. And unfortunately, Anni couldn't come in person, like I was already saying, but we made an interview. We thought that it would be nicer to have this kind of like an interview format than just one talking head, because it's have a lot of these talking heads nowadays. So a little bit different in that sense. So I will now share, stop sharing this screen, I think, and share the video. Oh,
Now we are
I will-
continuing our lecture
Oops.
series.
I will have to go back. Went too fast, this screen. There's sound. No. Now we are continuing our lecture series on streaming in the context of EU Erasmus project, Education for Technological Literacy and Inclusion. And I have here Anni Leino, one of our graduates from the Estonian Academy of Music and Theatre Culture Management Program. And Anni, you did your master thesis on streaming. Do you like to present your master thesis and yourself at the beginning?
Yeah. So hi, my name is Anni Leino. I did my master's degree I graduated last spring from Tallinn, and I did my master's degree on the topic of unveiling motivations and unlocking opportunities, leveraging online showcases for performing arts promotion. So I've been working years in performing arts, organizing different kind of showcase events, which are so-called B2B events in performing arts. So bringing together the festival directors, theater directors, as well as the artists whose work we are promoting. So during the pandemic, I had the honor of doing these events as well in Helsinki. And of course, we had an urgent need to find new ways to bring these people together in our events. So we did actually 2 showcase events as an so-called hybrid events, so combining both online and on-site features.
Could you tell us who is we?
Yeah. So I'm not anymore working there, but I used to work in Dancing for Finland still last spring. And we did Ice Hot Nordic Dance Platform, which is presenting Nordic contemporary dance, and Performing Hell Showcase, which is promoting the Finnish performing arts for international audiences.
Okay, so where do you work nowadays then?
Nowadays, I work in Zodiac Center for New Dance, so not so far away, still in the field of dance.
Okay. Maybe we now go into a bit of detail about streaming in the context of arts and cultural events. So when would you recommend that we use streaming?
I would say first thing is to be a bit critical towards it. I mean, it is a good way to broaden your audience. I would say broaden your audience, but to first start from the content. I mean, it's not for every event, it's not for every purpose. Sometimes it can break also what happens on site. So I would start from the content and ask for myself that, is this really needed?
Can you give us an example when a streaming is a good choice?
For example, from my own experience from these showcase events, I think because the scope is international, we are promoting for international audiences. And of course, we had the difficulty to bring those people in Helsinki, which would have normally done. But to make it more flexible for the attendance to pick, there doesn't have to be a pandemic to make it more flexible. It can be a life situation. It can be a matter of resources as well to take part on site. So, yeah.
And what would be the kind of content that streaming is disturbing or doesn't kind of fit at all?
If there's if you wish that participants would share something really personal, for example, then I think doing hybrid events, for example, can disturb also the willingness to share on site personal views. But I think people get also more used to that, and maybe the key is to be open with the thing that if you're streaming or if you're recording, people should know that.
Yes, not have
Not-
unpleasant surprises. Definitely.
Exactly.
How about if we are kind of recording our discussion? It's not the live stream. When do you think this kind of content is actually better than the live streaming?
Actually, that was also one of my kind of results from my thesis, was that live streaming is not necessarily all the time. I mean, there are certain, if you launch something, if you launch a program, if you launch a product or something that you want to share the information for people exactly at the same time, but most of the things, for example, performances, the added value on if the person who is taking part in the event remotely, does she or he need to have the information at the same time as it's happening, or could it be actually better to just watch it from the recording? So I think it's a matter of how much communication you want to include in this event, how much is needed from for example, in this format. I mean, I guess we are not expecting anyone to ask from anything from us.
Not allowed now.
Exactly.
Yes.
But if we would like to have people involved in the conversation, then having this live for the audience would be a choice to make.
You already mentioned this kind of hybrid events. What would be the kind of like the challenges and on the other hand the benefits on those kind of cases? Quite common, I think, nowadays to have.
It is, and it's also one of the results from the work that I think it's very much going to be the future and present of professional events in any sector, I would say. But still, and this is where we started, was kind of the misunderstanding of, we thought that it would be easier to do online events, and this is, I think it's not at all true. I mean, it requires resources, if not money, then human resources. Monitoring the live streaming same time when doing the on-site event, there are like the audience multiplies itself. Also, I think what we're going to see in the future is that we are more and more capable of doing online events so that they are more captivating and more tying people together, kind of not just replicating what is happening live, but really kind of tailor-made events for the online environment.
Can you give us an example? What would be captivating, or what would be something that we can't do on live, but we can do online?
Well, I think, for example, education purposes education is really a good example on something that content can be shared and easily delivered and watched in people's own schedule. I mean, I think there's a lot to learn from that, and that's probably happening now. Yeah, but still to be kind of critical when the meeting, like face-to-face meeting, is still important. And I think the combination is really the thing that we are going to use more and more in the future. What was your question?
What would be the kind of like added element that would create this captivation in online context?
I think where we started was to just replicate what is happening on site, kind of. And it shows from the results of my thesis as well that actually the people taking part remotely are not so interested in what is happening on site if they can't participate themselves. So it's like not, if you do a music festival on site, the experience of taking part is different than if the person takes part online from their sofa. So kind of thinking how the whole structure of the festival could serve the participant better in this online format. So for example, time length is
Mhm.
one really practical thing of considering while you do the online event. People won't stay 3 days in your festival online.
How about then, you already mentioned this kind of like social connection.
Mm.
How can you, do you even try to build it online, or how could you build it?
Yeah, well,
Let's keep like festival event context.
actually the social level is element is the crucial one. That's what disappears when you go online, and that's also a big motivation for many people take part in any kind of events. What I found out during my thesis process is that the trust building between people, and I think this is also how much people are willing to give from themselves while participating, is about trust. So kind of, and this is from the professional events, kind of where you bring people to network or create connections. One of the results was that if people meet at the first time online, they can form so-called weak connections, which can be beneficial, like in a long run, but still kind of the trust building, it requires face-to-face time. So in an international, I don't know, collaboration project that is just about to start, I would still meet face-to-face, even though the online meetings would later on be really
Just to have the human connection.
Exactly, and get to know and so forth. Also, misunderstandings are easily happening online if you don't know how to read the person first.
How about then, for example, during the pandemic, there were like these concerts online, and then the participants could participate in a very different manner than on site, because they could chat with the performers or even talk. But how would you see this? Is this kind of like something that people wish to do, or?
I think this is also about how to orchestrate the whole event. I think we all have been in these events that nobody actually takes part, even though they are encouraged to ask questions or comment, and they are sort of there, but they are not present, and then you're panicking what to do and why they're not saying anything. But yeah, you mean in an artistic kind of context, or
Even like this panel discussion that people are watching you and maybe wanting to ask something, or?
Well, I have one example, it's really from my own life, from the pandemic years, which I think worked really well, was that one of my favorite artists had like Instagram live session, where, because we didn't have opportunity to go to gigs or concerts, he was in his living room playing the music, and I could like see other people taking part and being present and commenting on that concert. And that was actually something that I think somehow brought the artist closer to me than taking part in a concert on sites in real life. But I don't know, there's no like one kind of a way to build I would say, as bigger the event is, it's probably more unlike that people are willing to, go. Also, sometimes it can be a problem that you have a chat and you don't have anyone to monitor that during the event. That has also happened. That then there's something totally else happening in the chat that should be kind of also.
Yeah, it should be connected.
Yeah,
that was
this is a
actually
matter
one of my things. Do you need a censorship? That
not maybe censorship, but if you do an event which is hybrid, and for example, you're in a studio and you are kind of talking, and you're the talking head of the whole event, you have to have another person taking care of the chat. And so that means 2 producers, or I don't know, 3 producers, even if there's somebody taking care of like that the broadcasting is working well and so on. So first attempts were really, I tried to do everything by myself, but even for a Zoom meeting or Zoom event, I would use nowadays a colleague or a friend or whoever who could help me with the monitoring to chat.
And do you think that's something something a bit
Mm.
different, but us as culture manager educators
Mm.
should start taking into consideration these different roles in.
I think yes, but maybe I think in education quite much can be also recorded and not.
Mhm.
I think it's sometimes it's heavy to watch live stream that is recorded
Mhm.
later rather than a person recording a lecture and then edit that properly and
Mhm.
then somebody like it's really heavy to see these like live streamed recordings
Yes.
or recordings from the live stream. But yeah, I think we need new tools and we need new skills
Mhm.
to build up the online events. I think, and this, yeah, also from my thesis research, I started to think that when I was doing my questionnaire, I kind of realized at some point that people have this like awful experience from the pandemic.
Mhm.
So that kind of affects the attitude as well. So they can't really dream of, what would be their dream online event or dream recording or
No,
whatsoever.
because it was forced on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So we as producers, managers, teachers, who else, we need to kind of figure out how to make better content.
But okay, and
Yeah.
more adapted to the
Yeah,
online
yeah,
environment, maybe
yeah.
not just
Yeah,
like you've
and
been
it's a
saying that
challenge.
it
Mm.
might be like a wrong way of just repeating
Yeah.
whatever is happening
Exactly.
here
It's a
or
challenge.
on site.
Mm.
Yes. How about then you talked about this 3-day event or even a 1-day event that it might be hard for people to participate online
Mm.
through streaming. How would you then manage the people's time or expectations
Mm.
and the breaks? I mean, in normal event, you would go for a coffee, but
Yeah.
how you then get the people to come back when you're not yelling there that come back?
Yeah. I would ask myself first, let's say that I have the on-site event as well going on. And for us, it was all the time that was kind of the main thing. And then parts of it was available online. So I would think you have to kind of construct that for totally different audience. So I would think which parts of the program are suitable online. Where I come from, it's about performances. So of course we were really sensitive also that if we didn't put everything online, because not all that happened on stage, we were still selling the stage work.
Mhm.
So not everything works online. So there's no idea to put a performance in online format if it's not suitable for that, or if it's
Okay.
not transferred. And what about these breaks? I think people make their own decisions anyway. So they can be present, but not really present, or then they can just disappear.
Definitely, yes.
And what is really common is that they sign up, but they
Mm.
never show up in online. So the commitment on these events it's different.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or maybe
Mm.
continue a little bit about this, like some performances are not fit for for online. How do you know which ones to stream and which ones to skip?
Mm. Well, it's about the audience. Who are you gonna reach? Like if it's, or who do you wanna reach, and what's the goal of the whole thing? And sometimes it can be also useful for yourself to record certain events, even though they wouldn't be like shared or streamed or whatever. I don't know. How do you know? It depends really the content.
And do you also ask the artist?
Yeah.
Or is it like a producer decision, or how does it work in practice?
Well, in the case of showcase events where we had like full-length performances in a program and these project pitch, short pitches by the artist and the short demo performances, I think we didn't actually live stream any of the performances because
like the full performances.
Because that would require more artistic approach also to how to make maybe more cameras and everything to kind of fit that to another format. But then what comes to the short demo performances and the pitch program went perfectly online. So I think we didn't really need to negotiate during that time with the artist, because it's for them as well. We could get more audience, and we could also actually use some of the content later on. I mean, you have presented your work in 5 minutes, so we have a video, so you can actually use the video later on in other contexts, just to share that, hey,
Yeah, like introductory.
yeah,
thing.
exactly,
Mhm.
to present yourself somewhere else. So
So in fact, you would maybe recommend that you not only online streaming, but also recording.
it
And then
depends on
thinking like what to keep and what not to keep.
also use the professionals. I mean, even though we are not the professionals in filming or anything, we are actually quite good, and people are quite good in reading. We watch so much videos, and we watch so many kind of social media platforms we follow up. So people know what is good quality, and really the kind of attention span is really short. So if it's bad quality, the content is the second thing to kind of.
People get bored, or
they
it's
won't
so
watch
easy
it.
to skip.
Yeah, but if you can put some resources, money, people, do it great. I mean, then that content can serve you later as well.
So maybe rather than doing everything yourself and just having the presence, make more selective choices.
Yeah.
And then pick where you actually put the resources on.
Exactly, and that's actually related. You can also, I mean, you get more data out of for example, using YouTube or Vimeo or whatever platform. You can actually get data, quite much free data from the participants, and who actually watched the video and how long they watched and what worked and so on. So that's also a tool for developing those.
Learning by doing in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're now coming to the time span of the listener. I think we would talk for hours, but maybe the listeners might not want to hear us for too long a time, because what we have learned that the time span of concentration on online is rather short.
But if it's part of your studies that you have to do, then I guess it's another thing.
Yeah, then you don't have always the choice.
Yeah, exactly.
But how would you like to conclude our discussion? Like what would the main core message, your little pitch?
Yeah, and I've been talking about being critical, but I would still say also that be kind of sensitive and be open for kind of give yourself a chance to learn. It's really watching others' events, taking part in online events. That's actually the first step to kind of recognize what works and what doesn't. And that's how you start learning. And then making notes for yourself and trying not to make the same mistakes as other people do. But learn from those. So I would say that really try out. And it's not an end of the world if the streaming cuts, or if it doesn't work, or if sometimes the technology can be quite intimidating. So just try out. I mean, if it doesn't work, it's not that serious usually.
Then you do something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Anni.
Thanks.
And thank you for the listeners. So thank you for the listeners. I hope it was not too long, because we just learned that the time span is short. But now maybe if you have comments or questions on Anni's presentation, of course, Anni would be much better to answer, but comments maybe, or your own experiences are most welcome.
I think one thing I really agreed to is because we had the pandemic time where everything was online, then every time when someone is saying okay, let's do online event or something, then there are first reaction is flashback to the pandemic, because it was really a big part of our lives. I mean, for example, for my life, it was a very big part. Everything was online. So in the end, you just didn't want to do it anymore. But this was just one thing that came to mind as well.
I would like to comment the same thing, but the positive side. In pandemic time, for me, it opened a global audience possibility, for example, for my dance account, or for myself as well, because I I was like all the time taking different classes from different artists. For example, I had one class. Actually, the Amsterdam or it was like Amsterdam Ballet had some kind of streaming from their ballet class, and I was able to take this class as well because the streaming. So it had like positive and negative sides, I think.
Thank you, Katri. But yeah, that's a good point that you can connect with much broader, not necessarily audience, but different colleagues or different ways. Anybody else want to share some experiences? Okay. Easy thing.
Yes, actually, I
Please.
have, yeah, experience, but it was a Facebook Live event for me during pandemic periods. Now it came to my mind because I didn't remember. So it was my first time when I had a concert live, but it was very like smoothly and like quite good, and I had quite good range of I would say listeners, and yeah, but not that technically like the best. But yeah, if we consider pandemic, yeah, it was good.
Okay. Well, that kind of context you enjoy.
Yeah, and it was
people.
short,
Mm.
half an hour or something
Yeah.
like
So
that,
you
or
respect the
20.
time,
Yeah.
time
yeah.
span.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I think we are now coming towards the end of our time because we have to end at 4, I think. So thank you all. I hope you have learned throughout the streaming lessons. It's been a long week for you with lots of content and lots of things to learn. And there's also the assignment for MTA students. So you have hopefully found it from the Moodle. And if you have any questions on the assignment, you can turn to me or maybe Kari on your questions. And what else? I hope that you will kind of like become, or like Anni was saying, open, even though she was very critical. She's using these tools a lot. So be open of and reflective of how to use the streaming and when to use it, but also use it, not to kind of forget that this is one way of reaching people and reaching audiences. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.